Well, we've certainly had some interesting weather this week, haven't we? Personally, I enjoy watching the clouds, whether the weather is good or stormy, because the clouds talk to you. The clouds tell you things. Now, I'm not going to get all fancy with you and use your memories to think back to those days of your earth science class where they talked about cirrus clouds and stratus clouds and cumulonimbus clouds. Those are my favorite ones. It just sounds like a thunderstorm. Cumulonimbus. But you look at the clouds and you can get an idea of what's happening with the weather. We have two clouds in our lessons for this morning. One in the Old Testament, the book of Exodus, and another in the Gospel. Now, neither of those clouds had anything to do with the weather. If you recall your Exodus story, as the people of Israel were leaving Egypt and wandering for 40 years through the wilderness on their way to the promised land, God guided and directed them with a pillar of fire and a cloud. And then they come to Mount Sinai, God's holy mountain. And again, fire and cloud appear on the top of the mountain. Those two elements symbolizing the power and the majesty of God coming down to be with the people. And for more than a month, Moses exists inside that cloud, standing in the presence of God. And if you recall your Exodus story even more, after Moses comes back down later on in the story, the people ask him to put a veil over his face because his face is so brightly reflecting the light that he had been in. In other words, he was displaying and reflecting the presence of God in his life. Now we fast forward a couple of thousand years, and Jesus is on a different mountain with his disciples. And this is when he drops his disguise, his appearance as a human being, and reveals himself for who he is, the Son of God. Once again, there is a cloud that surrounds them. Once again, there is a voice from heaven. Maybe for the rest of this week, as you're going through your daily events, you might look up at the sky. And if you see the clouds, think of God being with you. Now, there may not be fire and smoke, and your face may not glow, but you can still reflect to others the glory of God that you feel in your own life.